Today's video is sponsored by Squirrel GX. Get the nuttiest gaming and browsing experience for your desktop by doing literally the same thing every other browser already does, including selling your data. Hello and welcome back to a Squirrel Plays. Today we're going to be talking about character flaws, and I think we're going to try and approach this just a touch differently this time to see how it goes. And by that I mean the first couple bits of the video we'll be talking about the concept of character flaws from a writing perspective, and then we'll get into how we can utilize that writing tool in the wonderful world of TTRPGs without going overboard and forgetting that we're actually playing a game and trying to have fun. Because remember, while there is a lot of overlap between story writing and running a tabletop game, there are some distinct differences to keep in mind. I talked about that in a much older video, and honestly, I'm tempted to tackle it again because I find it super interesting. Anyway, if that format works, then that might be how I approach things from here on out. I'll probably forget by next week. So here's the plan for today. Introduction, you are currently here. Hi, hello, how you doing? Part 1, what is a character flaw? This is to make sure we're all on the same page and talking about the same thing, so hopefully nobody gets confused. Part 2, why character flaws are awesome. My thoughts on why these are awesome, as well as some good and bad examples to reference, because that's always fun. And no, I'll refrain from kicking the acolyte again. As of writing this, it just got Season 2 canceled a day ago, which is hilarious, but that's neither here nor there, I suppose.
You serious?
Part 3 will be character flaws in the TTRPG world, followed by the shoutouts and closing question of the day, as we always do. And before we get all that underway, I of course have to give you the squirrel disclaimer. I am not your dad, despite that some of you wanted me to be last time I said that. You are free to write how you want. While this video may contain some nuggets of advice, it is for entertainment, and it's up to you to decide how useful or useless it may be to you and your works. Also, this by no means is a deep dive on the subject. I am merely scraping the surface to get the brain juices flowing. Now, let's get into this thing. It's a negative trait your character has. Nah, I'm just kidding. And that's not even entirely true, really. One article I read describes them as inherent imperfections, weaknesses, or negative traits that affect a character's thoughts, actions, and decisions, while another describes them as a negative quality in a character that affects them or others in a detrimental way. But the one I think I liked the most was a character flaw is a fault, limitation, or weakness. There's truth in all these descriptions, but by themselves, or at least the first two, can be a bit misleading. So let's go to the board and see what we can get. Let's start with looking at flaws as a negative trait. That would be things like selfishness, violent behavior, bigotry, greed, and the like. Things that we can generally look at and say, yeah, that's not a very good thing. Typically, things that aren't up for much debate as to whether they're bad or not, but that's not to say these are weak flaws by any means. They can each have a long road of challenges to deal with. But what about things that aren't obviously negative, but still hinder a character or those around them in some way? A lack of specific knowledge could be considered a flaw. This could lead a character to be tricked by someone and taken advantage of. They could unknowingly lead their troops into danger or that kind of thing. Emotional trauma would definitely be something that hinders a character. It could prevent them from trusting someone, which might make things a lot more difficult. It could prevent them from getting close to someone, putting a damper on their happiness. It's hindering them. It's making things more difficult. But then we start getting into the more subjective areas of flaws. What if I said a gnarly scar on your face is a character flaw? Some might agree, and some might not. Someone with a low self-esteem might see it as something that prevents them from being beautiful, an imperfection, if you will. Another character might see it as a painful reminder that they weren't good enough and lost a fight. It could prevent a character from hiding amongst a crowd because that scar stands out too much and is way too recognizable. And then again, others might not even give a toot about it, or heck, they might see it as a trophy if they got it in a fight and lived to tell the tale. Chicks dig scars, man. Or at least that's what I was told when I was a kid. Beginning to think I might have been lied to. Anyway, we're now crossing into territory where you might get yourself into trouble depending on how you word things. In our modern world of political correctness, yes, people will get upset if you say that things like blindness, deafness, missing limbs, speech impediments, and the like are flaws. And to those people I say, But in all seriousness, I have seen people get upset about these things. When you're crafting a story and building characters, you label things like that as character flaws. That does not mean you think people like that in the real world are actually flawed as individuals. It's just a name for a tool, and sometimes we don't give tools the best name. And a good example of that would be years and years ago when I worked at a collision repair shop. We had a tool called a mule dick because that is exactly what it looked like. Can't say I missed that job. Anyway, those are some of the things considered to be character flaws, and hopefully you get the idea by now what we're talking about. Now that we've defined flaws, let me tell you why they're awesome, or at least why giving them to a character is awesome. And check this out. I'm going to say something nice about Marvel. Tony Stark's character started out pretty terrible, right? He was egotistical, overconfident, a bit of a heavy drinker, a little self-absorbed, among some other things. Not exactly a great guy, right? And I promise this is saying something nice about Marvel. Tony didn't start off good. I mean, shoot, the beginning of his first movie is him nearly getting killed by the product of his decisions. Because of all these flaws, Tony had a lot more to overcome, and this gave him a multi-layered journey. There was more to it than his battle against that week's current BBEG. Tony went all the way from thinking he was the center of the universe to willingly giving himself up for the universe. Spoiler alert, I guess, if you didn't know that already. A little late now, I suppose. If Tony's adventure was just him fighting the bad guy and saving the day, it wouldn't have been very interesting. There wouldn't have been a lot to it, and if it ended up costing him his life, well, the impact really wouldn't have been there. And this is why a lot of people had trouble with Rey from the Disney Star Wars trilogy. She didn't really have flaws to overcome. All she had to do was exist, and she was mostly good enough to save the day as is. She didn't have that personal journey to undertake. She was already good and just kind of got more good as she went. And that reminds me of the wise words of a certain dragon. Which is better, to be born good, or to... I'm just gonna let the dragon do it.
What is better, to be born good or to overcome your evil nature through great effort?
I still can't believe that is the same voice as Mario. Yahoo! But in all seriousness, those flaws do make for a better story and a better character. They make a character much more believable. Everybody has flaws, so it is only natural that we see flaws in our characters, even the heroes. Imagine, if you will, if we saw Superman deal with the stupidity of people in a more believable way. Every time somebody said something stupid to him, he'd move at super speed to fly away, punch a moon out of pure frustration and let the rage out, then zip back down before the person even noticed, so it looked like he kept his composure the entire time. We might not be able to fly away and punch a moon, but we can certainly relate to the frustration of dealing with stupid people. And let's be real, some of us would like to fly away and punch the moon. Stupid moon. Anyway, believability is key, even in a world of superheroes, magic, lightsabers, and whatever else you can think of. Just like I said in the character reactions video, it doesn't matter what's going on in that world. The characters still need to be believable themselves, and flaws can really help with that. Unless you do that weird thing where you give a character a flaw, but act like it's a good thing because you couldn't write your way out of a cardboard box that was open at both ends and end up getting your show canceled. Like and subscribe. Actually, this might be a little disappointing to some of you, especially since I've said before that while there is a lot of overlap between writing a story and running a TTRPG, there are some distinct differences. But this time, not really. Be it an NPC or a player character, you would give them flaws for all the same reasons you would a character in a written story. Including the wonderful reason that I forgot to mention earlier is that it gives them the opportunity to lose at something. I know that doesn't sound too great, especially if you're a player, but trust me, I'm a YouTuber. I totally know what I'm talking about, and I say it makes your character great. But you know what your TTRPG character has that a written character doesn't? Stats, that's what. Or maybe just some listed abilities if you're playing something like Easy D6. So let's put some abstract character on the board here, and let's say this is the ideal character in the sense he has the abilities, skills, and traits to succeed in everything. He's got magic, he can heal himself, he's got good attack and defense, and he's even stealthy. The lad does it all. He's got the charisma for negotiating, the intelligence to decipher the hardest of puzzles, the wisdom to read a room, and our boy is just built different.
Y'all built different. I'm built incorrectly. I'm just raw in every way.
I should not exist.
I should not exist.
The perfect specimen, you might say. But you know what he really is? Boring. Boring as all get out. Nobody playing alongside this character is going to have a good time because they are not going to get the chance to do anything. Our lad here has everything covered. And that's just another reason why flaws are fantastic. Check it out. Take away healing, and now he has to depend on somebody to keep him alive when the battle gets rough. That healer gets a moment to shine. Take away his high attack, well, now the rest of the party has to step in and do some damage, but if he gets to keep his high defense, well, now he can be their shield. And outside of combat is no different. If we take away the man's riz, like I just did with half my subscribers by using that word, your smooth talker of the group gets to be more useful now. As a matter of fact, his charisma might be so low that he gets you into trouble in bad situations because his word choice is just that poor. No intelligence, and the poor guy might walk right into a trap. Flaws, narratively and with stats, make room for conflict. And as you probably know, conflict makes for a good story. But also, and your mileage may vary on this depending on how you play your games, flaws can make things way more immersive. It really does add a whole other layer to your character. It's another way you can grow and experience them. And character flaws remind me of that Japanese philosophy and craft, and I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but I will say it's Kintsugi. It's where they take broken ceramics and put them back together, but they'll mix in powdered gold or silver in with the stuff they glue it back together with. And the philosophy behind that is embracing the flawed or imperfect. Just a little something to think about that I find interesting, and you can check it out if you got a few extra minutes to spare. And if I remember to add one, there will be a link to the wiki article about it in the description. Honestly, there's some really neat stuff in there in that article to consider while working on making a character. And really, it's kind of a short one today. I didn't want to get way too far off into the weeds, but I'm beginning to think I may not have talked about it enough. But that does bring us today's shout out, so let's see who we got in the bucket today. I think today's will go to Boris the Bullet Dodger because I can always depend on him to give me a positive comment. That's a good lad right there, and I know he's a lad because my YouTube stats tell me so. Oh, they really did lie to me about those scars. And that's it. The question of the day is... Tell you what, let's do two specifically, one for writing and one for TTRPGs. For writing, what is one, I know there's probably a lot, what is one of your favorite uses of a flaw, be it a book, TV show, or movie? And for the TTRPG side, what was one of your favorite times a flaw was used in your game and how did it pan out?